right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start in exactly 2 minutes. I'm very excited that you are sharing where you're joining us from in the comment section. I see people joining from Nakuru, Kenya, people joining from Nairobi, Jacqueline joining from Ghana, Morugi joining from the UK. I'm so excited to have you here. I can't wait to share my debt freedom story. I can't wait to share my debt freedom story. And at the same time, I can't wait for you to tell me in the comment section, what are you looking forward to learning? Let me know, what are you looking forward to learning, so that I know by the end of this webinar, what do you want me to have taught you, so that it's going to be a successful one. And we are going to start in 1 minute. So that 1 minute is going to help anyone else who'd like to. Oh, there's also somebody else from Nakuru. Okay, there's so many people here from Nakuru, clearly. Welcome. I'm so excited. 1 more minute to go. What are you looking forward to learning? Tell us. Where are you joining us from? Also, I'd be very excited if you can tell me if you're part of the Wealth Tribe. Did you join this webinar from my invitation? Are you already a member of the Wealth Tribe? I would like to see how many people from the Wealth Tribe have come to support me in this webinar. In the meantime, Washira Gatheri says, I would like to know how to fix my rental pay every month. Okay. Wilfred Mwangi says, looking forward to learning a sustainable means to settle debts while balancing my financial responsibilities. Okay, for sure we'll learn that. And Washira also says, yes, he's a member of the Wealth Tribe. Thank you. I get very excited when Wealth Tribe members show up for my webinars, because it shows clearly when I write those blog posts, do those YouTube videos, and send my newsletter, there are people who actually read them and show up. So I appreciate it. Okay, and so now it's time to start the webinar, because we've already given others 6 minutes. So welcome. So let's start. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm also joined by Angela. She works for the MasterCard Foundation's Baobab platform. She's going to help me moderate the conversation. She's going to help me moderate the conversation, but I will be your speaker and I'll be sharing my story, while at the same time teaching you the strategies that you can use to get out of debt. So you'll give me a minute to pull out my presentation. Hi, Angela, please confirm that, or people in the chat box, please confirm that you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So welcome everyone to this webinar, Beating the Debt Cycle. And it's about, we're going to be talking about proven ways to get out of debt. Proven ways to get out of debt. First, I'm going to take this moment to introduce myself. My name is Agatha. I'm a creative artist, writer, financial coach, and the founder of the Wealth Tribe. The Wealth Tribe is a community of young people who openly talk about money and help each other build wealth. I am passionate about helping people who are struggling with debt, and that's why we are here today. People who are struggling with debt, who are people who are unable to make budgets that work, people who want to grow their savings, people who want to improve the quality of their lives, and those who are looking to diversify their investment portfolios to attain financial freedom by offering personalized financial coaching and financial literacy content. Through my blog, books, and coaching, I have helped over 18,000 people come up with a financial plan and build generational wealth, which sets them apart to leave a legacy of wealth for their families. Because as I always say, if you have a family, for example, if you're married to someone, or if you have kids, or even if whoever you consider as your family, I always say that the money that you make is not just your money. That money belongs to both you and your family. Therefore, it's very important for you to think about what legacy will you leave, what will you leave behind. So that's what I help people do. I'm also an alumni. I'm also a current Baobab alumni in residence fellow, and I'm going to be telling you what that is all about. So what is Baobab? Baobab is a social, professional learning community of young African leaders, participants, and alumni of the MasterCard Foundation programs. So a few years ago, Baobab was only accessible to people who've gone through a MasterCard Foundation for scholarship, fellowship, works there, or such. But now, Baobab is actually accessible to everyone. So if you're joining this webinar, you're able to join Baobab. And why should you? I'm sure I have to convince you, why should you join Baobab anyway? So opportunities. Number one, you have access to a lot of opportunities. On the Baobab platform, there are a lot of opportunities. There's an opportunities board with curated career selections from around the world. And so these are both local and international careers. And these careers are not just in one sector. So it doesn't matter whether you're in HR, you're in tech, you're in IT, you're in finance. It doesn't matter. Even if it's freelancing, you're a freelancer. It doesn't matter which sector you are. There are always new jobs. They are posted on almost a daily basis that you can take advantage of. There's also the aspect of professional development. You're able to sharpen your skills with their growing catalog of courses and professional development events. So there's so many free courses available for you on that platform. And actually, I've taken 2 courses on the Baobab platform so far. And one of the courses that I recently took actually helped me scale my my business. So I'm a writer and a content creator. It's a course on digital, on digital, how to build a digital career. So it actually really helped me scale my career, and I would encourage you to join Baobab so that you're able to take advantage of such free courses. Then there's a mentorship. Baobab offers mentorship opportunities and host industry experts who answer trending questions for young African leaders. In fact, at the moment, if you join Baobab, there's an application going on where if you apply for it, you're able to be matched by a mentor, one-on-one mentor, somebody who will help you scale your career, or somebody who will help you get clarity with your goals and to also give you the advice you need in order to level up to exactly where you want to be. And then there's a networking aspect. If you join Baobab, you'll join a growing community of like-minded young African leaders who share your interests, passions, and experiences. And so Angela will put a link in the comment section, a direct link that you can click and join Baobab today. And so if you join, this is everything you have access to. And so I mentioned when I was introducing myself that I am an alumni in residence fellow. So a friend of mine introduced me to Baobab, and I applied to join Baobab. And when I applied, that's when I filled my details. I got into Baobab, and then I saw that opportunity about alumni in residence fellow. That's how I applied for the fellowship, and that's why I'm hosting this event today. I also write personal finance content for the Baobab platform. And so this is just one of the opportunities available for you if you're a content creator, or if you in any other career. All these opportunities are available for you. And now that you know about Baobab, let me go ahead and share my death story. So in mid-2018, I was seated in what Kenyans refer to as a matatu, which is, if you're not Kenyan, if you're not familiar with this phrase, this is a public transport vehicle. So seated in a public transport vehicle, and I was on my way to work. And then I received a call from a strange number. I didn't know who was calling, but I picked up the call. And when I picked up, somebody asked me, "Are you Agatha?" I told them, "Yes, my name is Agatha." They told me, you acquired a loan, you took up a debt from one of our mobile money apps, and this debt was due last week, and you're yet to pay this debt. So this stranger was calling me from one of the many mobile money loan apps in Kenya. And so this person told me that you're supposed to, you are meant to pay this debt by last week, but you're yet to pay, and so I want you to pay this debt today. And so I told this person that I didn't have the money. I told them I didn't have the money to pay my loan that day. And so this man proceeded to tell me that, "Listen, I don't care whether you don't have the money to pay this loan or not. You have to pay that loan today, and if you don't pay for this loan, we are going to come for you." And I started wondering, what does he mean? And then he proceeded to tell me, listen, I know where you work. I know who your siblings are. I know who your parents are. I know the people you call often. I know where you live. I know what time you go to work. I know I have a lot of personal information from you. I even know the people that you call often, and I can even read for you the messages, the last 5 messages that you sent from your phone. And I was really shocked, and I started wondering, how come he has access to all this information? Well, it happens that in Kenya, we have these mobile money loan apps. If you're Kenyan, the likes of Branch, Tala, and all these. And what happens is that every time you sign up to one of these apps, most of these apps, because they are unregulated, at least now the Central Bank of Kenya is doing some work to start regulating them. But for many years that they've been existing, what happens that when you sign up, one of the things that you give up is your privacy. So you give them access to your to your call logs, to your location, to your messages. So they know the people you call, where you live, where you work. They have all this information. They can actually track you down. So this person actually threatened and told me that if you do not, if you don't show up, or if you don't pay back this debt today, we are going to track you down. So either way, I didn't have the money to pay back that day. So he told me, listen, I'm going to give you a week. If you don't pay this money, I am actually going to track you down. And I remember he said it with such utter seriousness. And, it was a threat. It was a threat on my life. So what happens is that when I went to work that day, I remember I was very disturbed. And I actually remember even on my way to work, I kept looking back to see if there's anyone following me. And I remember that was one of the worst days in my life, because I was so scared. I was so scared. I was paranoid that maybe somebody is following me. That maybe someone is following me. I even remember that day my boss asking me, why is it that you seem distracted today? But of course, I couldn't tell my boss that I am stuck in so many loans that I'm actually receiving life-threatening calls. And the truth is, by the time these people were calling me, I had so many loans. In fact, I now refer to myself that I used to be the queen of mobile money loans, because I used to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. That means I used to borrow from Branch to pay Tala, from KCB and Pesa to pay Branch. I had 10 of those apps. And so that was the cycle. I was stuck in that cycle. Mine was not even living paycheck to paycheck. Mine was living debt to debt. That was my story. And so because I received that call, I even remember on my way back home, I was so scared. I was so tensed. I thought that somebody is following me. And so on that day, that was in mid-2018, I remember clearly. And so on that day, when I went back home, in my little apartment, I remember wondering, how did I get here? How did I get how did I get myself in a situation where I'm actually, one, receiving life-threatening calls? Number two, why am I living in so much debt? And the truth is, at that point I had a job. It wasn't well paying, but I can admit that I was being paid enough money for me to be able to cater for all my bills and live without the debt. So I started asking myself, why is it that I'm living debt to debt? Why is it that I have no savings? I had zero savings. Why is it that I have no savings? Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Why am I in a situation where on my way to work on a Monday morning, I'm receiving life-threatening calls? And I remember the worst question that really broke me. I remember thinking, have I failed as an adult? I really felt that I had failed, because what is this situation where somebody is actually sending me life-threatening calls and telling me that they're going to track me down? I remember feeling like I had really, really failed. And so in that situation, when I asked myself those introspective questions, asking myself those introspective questions was my first step towards my journey towards debt freedom. And so when I asked myself those questions, I remember taking my phone and Googling, because the thing is, I was financially illiterate. Even by asking myself, why don't I have any savings? Why am I stuck in debt? I didn't know answers to these things. So I remember taking my phone and Googling, how to get myself out of debt. And I remember there were so many articles that I found how to get myself out of debt. And I remember reading a lot of them. I even remember Googling how to create a budget, because I didn't know how to create a budget. And I remember that most of those articles were curated for the American audience. Yes, it's the same. It's actually the same content, like getting out of debt when you're in the US or the UK is the same concept. Interest rates means the same things in all other countries. So I remember consuming so much of that content, and I remember making progress towards attaining for debt freedom. And now I'm going to share with you, these are the easy steps, the easy tips I used to get myself out of debt. So first of all, I made it visual. So I remember, and let me show you an image. So I remember I created, so this is an example of what I created. I remember taking my notebook and drawing, staircases, like what you can see here, drawing staircases, and each staircase, as you can see, represented 500 shillings. 500 shillings is equal to $5, thereabout, $5. And every time I paid 500 shillings or $5 worth of debt, I would highlight it with a marker pen. And making something visual, visualizing something like this or writing it down makes it real, and because I made it visual, it made me see that I am making progress. So this as an example, as you can see, the ones that I have highlighted in pink and yellow, making it visual made me see that I am making progress. And that's how I was able to stick to my debt freedom journey. Tip number 2 is I made a list of all my debts and started with the smallest. So I remember at that point in my life, I had many debts. I had the mobile money loans debt. I had my higher education loans board debt. That is a student, for those of you who are not Kenyans, that's a student loan that you get from the government in order for you to pay for your university fees and survive in uni. So I had that, and I also owed friends. I remember I was so bad when it comes to debt that at some point my friends and I came together. I remember like around 6 friends of mine in 2017 came together, and we formed a chama, or those of you who are not Kenyans, a savings group. And when we created this savings group, what happened is that for some reason, the savings group, this group of friends decided that I was going to be the treasurer. I don't know which wisdom they used for them to decide that I was going to be the treasurer, because as they were making me the treasurer, I was stuck in debt. And I remember feeling, this is a good opportunity for me to get money from these people, to fund my life, because clearly I was living paycheck to paycheck or from debt to debt. And I remember the money that my savings group sent me, I used to spend it to pay back my debt, or spend it, to buy food and basically run my life. And then when it came to the time that I was supposed to give back the money, or actually invest the money on their behalf, I took a loan. So I took a loan to invest for my friends, because I had already used up the money that they had entrusted me. So that's how bad I was when it comes to debt. So I made a list of all my debts and started with the smallest. And starting from the smallest, as I will teach later, makes you have hope, because if you start, let's say, for example, I have $100 worth of debt, and I have another $5,000 worth of debt, and another $10,000 worth of debt. If you start with the 10,000 one, if you start paying off with the 10,000 one, because obviously you can pay it in one chunk, it will take you forever. And but by taking forever, you're likely to give up. And so for me, starting with the smallest made me feel that, yes, I'm able to get myself out of this situation. And then any extra money I made went straight into debt payment. Remember, 1, I had received a life-threatening call. Number 2, I had made a realization that I had 0 savings. Number 3, I had a job that paid me relatively well, yet I was living from debt to debt. And so I made a plan that I was going to save myself. I was going to save myself and get myself out of this mess. So any extra money I made from my job went straight into debt payment. So at that point, I remember I was working as a brain coach, and it was possible for us to take extra sessions at work, and for every extra session that you took, you are paid extra. So for every extra child that I trained, I got paid extra, and that is how, and all that money went into debt payment. Number 4, I remember I created an Excel document and labeled it my financial responsibilities. Why? Because I wanted to own my mess. So I always say that for most of us, if we're being honest, the financial situation you're in, or the debt situation you're in, you're not 100% to blame. And I want you to remember that you're not 100% to blame for the debt situation that you're in. Why? Number 1, for most of us in our homes, our parents or our guardians never taught us anything to do with money, or those of us who are not taught anything to do with money or how to good money management also picked up bad financial habits from our parents. So our homes were not taught. Number two, in school, there was no curriculum to teach us better financial literacy skills. And so what happens that for most of us, we just found ourselves as adults with jobs and a paycheck, and we had no idea how we're supposed to manage that money. Therefore, that's what I always say, you're never 100% to blame for the debt that you're in right now. But that being said, unfortunately, adulting equals responsibility. What that means is that if you're in debt and if you got yourself in debt, you are the only person who is responsible to get yourself out of it. And so for me, that's what I did. I created an Excel document and labeled it, and I have that Excel sheet up to date, labeled it my financial responsibilities, because I owned the mess. I owned that I got myself into all this debt and I was ready to get myself out of it. And by owning and accepting the situation I was in, that gave me a lot of motivation to get myself out of that situation. And then I stopped shopping. Let me tell you, but by the time I was receiving that life-threatening call, I remember I had a list of the things that I needed to do, or I had a list of the things that I needed to do in order to upgrade my house. Number one, I remember I needed to buy I wanted to buy a new mattress. I wanted to buy a new carpet. I wanted to buy a TV. I didn't have a TV at that time. I wanted to buy a TV. I wanted to buy a closet, and I wanted to buy a lot of more clothes and shoes, and a cooker for my kitchen. I had a list of the things that I wanted to buy, and then it happened that I received this life-threatening call. So what I did, I put all this shopping on hold, because none of these things that I'm mentioning were basic needs. All these things were ways to upgrade my lifestyle, and most likely, in fact, I can 100% bet on myself, I was going to upgrade this lifestyle through debt. So I stopped upgrading my lifestyle by stopping shopping, and instead I used my money from my salary to pay off debt, as opposed to digging myself deeper into this grave of debt. And then as soon as I was done with one app, so as I mentioned earlier, this life-threatening call is because I had so many debts from the mobile money loans, and it happens that they have so much access to your information. So as soon as I was done with one app, I deleted it. And I even went a step higher. I made an extra step. I used to, after I delete the app, I would look for their emails. I would look for the emails of these marketing emails of this app, and then I would write to them and tell them, listen, please get me off your database. I told them, get me off your database. Please delete my number, my number, and delete my name and my email address. Because what happens is that these apps, even after you're done paying your debt, they have a way of hooking you back into that debt cycle. How do they do it? They keep sending you emails, they keep sending you text reminders to remind you that you still have access to 5,000 worth of debt. You qualify. In fact, they tell you qualify for $10,000 or 10,000 worth of debt. And so I told them, please get me off your system. And by getting me off their system, it means I was not tempted to get myself back into that debt cycle. And then I talked about my fears and progress with my friend. So for most of us, when we are stuck with debt, one, we live in a lot of shame. And number two, we adopt the avoidance mechanism. So by avoidance mechanism, I mean, one, we do not check how much debt. We don't check how much debt you have. We don't check how much debt you have. You don't read the information from these mobile money apps. If you have a loan from the bank, you've never opened those statements because you're trying to avoid. Because we think that by avoiding looking at these statements and by avoiding creating an Excel sheet and knowing how much interest rates we are paying, then these debt problems are going to solve themselves magically. Unfortunately, there's no magic to debt freedom. So for me, I talked about my fears and progress with my friend, because I said we live in a lot of shame. So I remember I used to talk to my friend when I made that Excel sheet with my financial responsibilities. I remember I used to talk to my friend and tell him how scared I am of this journey, of my debt freedom journey. And I used to tell him that I don't think I'm ever going to get myself out of debt. And I remember he used to remind me that, no, you already have an Excel sheet, you have progress, you have that staircase thing every week. You keep ticking off the people you've paid back. And so by talking about my fears, because as I've said, most of us are very scared and we live with a lot of anxiety. Some people even get into depression. Some people even suffer from depression because of the amount of debt they're in. So if you have somebody, a true friend, a relative, a sister, a spouse that you can have this conversation with, that you can walk this journey with, a financial coach. Like for me, I'm a financial coach, and I actually, one of the things that I shared when I shared my bio, one of the things that I help people get out of is I help people get out of debt. So if you can talk about your fears and progress with someone, then it makes the journey easier, especially if the other person is able to tell you that, yeah, I was there too. So I keep telling people when I share my story that I have been there. When they tell me about the amount of debt they have, I keep telling them I have been there. I was the queen of debt. I got that t-shirt. I mopped the floor with it. And that's why I'm here sharing my story courageously. And then I canceled all plans to upgrade my house. So I've already talked about that. I canceled my plans to upgrade my house, and I stopped shopping for clothes and shoes because that was a real addiction that I had. And then I planned my funds, so I had something to look forward to. So when it comes to the journey of getting yourself out of debt, a lot of us think that when you decide that, yeah, this is the month or this is the year that I get myself out of debt, most of us usually decide that they're never going to go out with their friends. You're never going to have any form of fun. All the weekends, you're going to lock yourself inside your house, and you're never going to see people. And so what happens? Your brain hates that. Your mind hates that. We are humans. We are social beings. If you do that, if you go to such extremes of not going out or not having any fun just because you're getting out of debt, you are likely not to sustain your debt freedom journey. You're likely not to be consistent with your debt freedom journey. So for me, I remember sharing with my two best friends that I was on a journey to get myself out of debt, but at the same time, I needed to have fun. So I remember us deciding that every month, every week, every week we would contribute $2, 200 shillings, but every week actually, we would contribute $2, each of us. So we were a group of three. We would contribute $2, and then we would wait for that money to accumulate, and to accumulate to be enough money where we could go out, go for swimming, go to a restaurant to try new food, That system, because I was only contributing $2 in a week, made my brain realize that, yeah, I have something fun to look forward to, that even if I am quote unquote suffering in this process of paying off my debt, I have something beautiful, which is going out with my friends to look forward to. So you see, even in my budget, I was still putting aside $2,000 per week to go towards fun. And this is what I recommend. So when you're in your debt freedom journey, and when you're in your debt payoff journey, don't deny yourself of all the good things, because if you deny of all the good things, what will happen is that you're not going to be consistent, and you're going to give up. And when you give up, remember, you're going to go back to where you started, which is a terrible thing. So that is my story of how I got myself out of debt and the tips I used to get myself out of debt. If you have a question, please type it in the comment section. Please type it in the comment section, and I'll be able to answer. And then type it in the comment section, and Angela will help me to moderate the questions as soon as I'm done with the presentation. So that's my journey. So I'm also going to teach you, now that you've had my story and the tips that I use to get myself out of debt, I'm going to teach you the best debt payoff strategies that you can use both my tips, but also you can use these 3 debt payoff strategies to get yourself out of debt. Number 1, I'm going to teach you about the urgency method. I'm going to teach you about the snowball method, and I'm going to teach you about the avalanche method. So let's start off with the urgency method. Like I said, when I was sharing my story, I was carrying a lot of shame, and it's because debt affects our emotional well-being. Like I said, when we're in debt, we have a lot of anxiety. Some of us even end up being diagnosed with depression. And so one of the ways that we deal with this is avoidance mechanism, where we avoid looking at our statements, we avoid knowing how much debt we're carrying. So debt affects your emotional well-being. For example, I received a life-threatening message from debt collectors. And so so therefore, by receiving life-threatening messages, and by me, remember, I owed friends. I had a group of friends who entrusted me with their money, and then I used it to upgrade my lifestyle. And so therefore, my reputation was ruined, among my friends. And so when you have a lot of debt, when you owe a lot of people, you risk ruining your reputation with your friends. And so how does the urgency method work? So the urgency method works where you list all the people and institutions you owe, and then assign them an urgency tag. So an example of urgency tags you can use is to clear immediately, blacklisted, urgent, not urgent, or to pay in X days, weeks, months, or years. Let me show you a practical example. So Yeah. So for example, let's say this person is called Jane, and Jane owns John $100, has a credit card and they owe $1,300. I have another credit card where they owe $5,560, and has a SACCO. You know, a SACCO is a financial institution where you're able to get loans in Kenya. So you have this person has SACCO for $400. They owe $400 and a payday loan of $351. And so for you to use the agency method to get yourself, and remember, just like the word suggests, agency. So you use this debt payoff strategy when your mental health is affected. Number two, you're receiving life-threatening calls. Or number three, you're in a situation where your reputation is in the ruin, and therefore you need to save yourself first. So in this situation, this person you would first pay the payday loan because you're already blacklisted. So very likely that this person is already receiving life-threatening messages from the institution that they got their payday loan. So this Jane of ours should start by paying the payday loan, and then after they should pay the second one, which is the immediate clearance, and then go ahead and pay John because it's urgent, and then next go ahead and tackle the 2-year credit card payment, and then lastly they should pay the second credit card. Because in this way, by starting with the one that is blacklisted, where they are blacklisted and they are also receiving life-threatening calls, it means that it would reduce the level of anxiety that they are having to deal with. It would reduce the level of anxiety they're having to deal with because they will no longer have anyone calling them to threaten them. Next, we have why does the agency method work? And so this is the method that I used to get myself out of debt. So listing your debts on a spreadsheet is liberating. Like I shared, I listed my debts on a spreadsheet and called them my financial responsibilities. I owned my mess. That is a very liberating first step when it comes to getting yourself to debt freedom. And so with less anxiety, people get the logic behind personal finance knowledge and talk openly about money. So when you reduce your level of anxiety by paying people who are life-threatening you, by paying people whose reputation, who talk about you behind your back. Imagine you owe your neighbor money or you owe a cousin money, and they keep talking about, that person never pays their debt. And so if you pay them back with less anxiety, you're able to get the logic behind personal finance knowledge and talk openly about money. And then the pride of clearing the first life-threatening debts will motivate you to do better and eventually attain debt freedom. Just like me, when I canceled out the debts that I had at first, then I was able to feel, I am able to get myself out of this situation. And then you're able to maintain healthy relationships needed for my financial freedom. I keep saying that for you to attain financial freedom, it's not a solo journey. It's not something that you can do by yourself. And that's why, for example, I created the Wealth Tribe community. You need other people to learn from them, to share their stories. You need your relatives in order for you to attain financial freedom. Because, for example, you can come together, join create a savings and investments group, and therefore attain financial freedom together. So that's how the agency method works. Do let me know if you have questions in the comment section. And then let me know if you have questions in the comment section, and then I'll answer them. Angela, do we have any urgent question that I should answer at this point?
No, we don't have any question. We have comments coming in.
Sorry?
We have comments.
Okay, all right. So now let me teach you the second strategy called the debt snowball method by Dave Ramsey. How does the debt snowball method work? So this is how you make it work. So step one, make a list of all your debts from the smallest to the largest, except your mortgage. So if you have a mortgage, this doesn't apply. And then make a list of all your debts from the smallest debt to the largest debt, except your mortgage. And in this case, for the debt snowball method, ignore the interest rates. So I don't need you to go and look for the interest rate of each of these loans. Step two, pay the minimum amount due on each debt, except the smallest debt. And the minimum payment is the smallest amount of what you owe that the financial institution requires for you to pay each month. So for example, if you have a credit card from a bank, every month they usually send you a statement and they tell you this is the maximum amount, this is the amount of money you spent on this credit card, this is the total amount of money you owe on this credit card. But this is the minimum amount of money that we need you to pay so that we don't discontinue you from using this credit card. So that is what a minimum payment is. So step 2 is for you to pay the minimum amount due on each debt except the smallest. And then step 3, pay your smallest debt in full. Pay your smallest debt in full. If it's a big debt and you're unable to pay it in full, pay as much as you can. Okay. And step 4, repeat the process until you've paid all your debts. So let's go back to our Excel sheets for practicality. For the debt snowball method, we are starting with the smallest debt. So in this case, you would have to pay you'd start with paying John because this is the smallest debt in this list. So you get your salary at the end of the month, and then you have X amount of money. You've decided that X amount of money is how much money I can afford to go towards my paying debts. Because remember, even when you're in your debt freedom journey, you also have money that should go towards paying your rent, all your other necessities, and all those things. So it's for you to decide, this is how much money goes to my rent, my utilities, my food, and everything else. And then X amount of money is what goes towards my debt payment. So imagine that you've decided that $200 is how much money you can afford to go towards your debt payment. So in this case, using the debt snowball method, because we are starting with the smallest debt, you'd first clear off John. So you'd be able to, with $200, you'd be able to clear off John and strike it that, yes, you've paid John. And then the $200 extra that you have, you'd pay this money towards the payday loan, right? And so you'd pay, remember you owe $351 for your payday loan. So therefore you'd use the extra $100 to pay your payday loan. And then the second month, using the snowball method, if this is your strategy, you would continue paying the payday loan using your $200. And if you clear off the payday loan, then you would start paying the circle. So you're starting the smallest, going all the way up to the largest, and you repeat this cycle every month until you're debt free. So that's how the debt snowball method works. Why the debt snowball method works? You're literally creating hope with each debt that you pay, because remember, like me, if you're stuck in a lot of debt, you really need hope. You need to pay those small debts one by one. You need to pay at least 2 or 3 of them in order for you to feel, this journey, I can actually win in this journey of pursuing debt freedom. And hope is what will get you out of debt, one payment at a time. So you cross them off and then you feel, yeah, it's actually possible for me to attain debt freedom. If you do the opposite and start with the largest debt, you'll get frustrated and give up. Remember, there's a reason why. 1, you didn't have financial literacy. Number 2, you've been using the avoidance mechanism. You're full of anxiety, you're full of stress. And therefore, if you decide to use the debt, if you decide to start with the largest debt, with all the stress and anxiety and the amount of debt that you're carrying, you're likely to give up. So that's why it's encouraged that you start with the smallest debt. And so just like a snowball rolling down a hill, paying off debt is all about momentum. It's all about making small progress on a monthly or a weekly basis. With every debt you pay off, you gain speed until you're an unstoppable debt crushing force. Actually, remember that when I realized that I have ticked off about 10 debts, for my friends and these life-threatening mobile money loans, I started getting psyched up. I started getting very excited about getting myself to debt freedom. So it's the same thing that will happen to you. If, for example, you have 20 debts and you realize you've crossed off 5 of them, you'll become an unstoppable debt crushing force. That's how the debt snowball method works. Now I'm going to take you through the last method, the last strategy called the avalanche method. It's also known as debt stacking. So in this one, the interest rate determines which debt to pay off first. You remember when I was teaching about the debt snowball, I said you list your debts from the smallest to the largest, ignore the interest rate, you just start paying from the smallest to the largest. But in the avalanche method, you list all your debts, but you start paying the one that has the highest interest rates. So step 1, list all your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. So if we can go back to our Excel sheet, this one, the loan that has the highest interest rate here is the payday loan. So the payday loan has 300%. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of money that you're paying to this institution. So 300%. So for the avalanche method, because we are paying from the highest interest rate, this person would start by paying the payday loan 300%, and then pay the credit card that has 22%, then pay the second credit card that has 18%, pay the circle that has 8%, and finally pay off John because it's 0%. So let's go back. So list all your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest. Ignore the amount or the size of debt. This is all about the interest rate. Step 2, pay the minimum amount due on all your debts except the one with the highest interest rates. So here, if you have, again, $200, for example, every month that you can put towards your debt, you're supposed to pay just the minimum. So for example, credit cards are very dangerous if you have a credit card loan, because if you don't pay that minimum loan, they're going to send you a lot of letters threatening you to take you to the cops, getting you off that credit card or closing your bank accounts. So for all the other debts, in this case, you're just paying the minimum that you're expected to pay, but pay the minimum amount on all your debts except the one with the highest interest rate. So all the other amount of money that you have should go towards paying off all the debt with the highest interest rate. Step 3, pay the full amount of the debt with the highest interest rate. If you're unable to pay the full amount, because for example, if you owe $5,000, you know, with an interest rate of 300%, you probably will not have $5,000 within 1 month. So if you're unable to pay the full amount, pay the highest amount possible, okay? And then you repeat this until you've paid all your debts. Why does the avalanche method work? It's financially efficient. You'll pay a less amount of interest rate to financial institutions. And the interest that you could be, and this interest could be directed to other uses such as an emergency fund, or even traveling or having whatever kind of fund you like to have. So instead of paying 300% of interest rate to a financial institution or to these mobile money loans, think of it, imagine yourself in a situation where this money that you're using to pay all these interest rates could go towards having an emergency fund. And this is the first time you're hearing of the word emergency fund. An emergency fund is the amount of money that you need to survive for at least 6 months if you lost your job today. So you're supposed to sit down and calculate how much money do you need for rent, how much money do you need for all your basic needs, food, and all those things. Every amount of money that you're supposed to need, basic need you need to survive. And so let's say, for example, you need $1,000 for you to survive in a month. Multiply that amount by 6, so it's going to be $6,000, and you're supposed to save that amount of money to act as your emergency fund, so that if you lost your job tomorrow, then you're able to fund your life. So as I was saying, so all that interest rate that you're paying towards this financial institution could go to better use, such as funding your emergency fund, or just traveling the world or doing what you like. So why the avalanche method doesn't work for a lot of people? If you're deep in debt, you need small wins to keep going. So you remember this one, we are starting with the one that with the highest interest rate, and maybe the one with the highest interest rate is the highest debt that you have. So if you're deep in debt, you need small wins to keep going, and that's why the snowball method and the urgency method works, because it creates hope, it encourages you to keep going. And so to attain financial freedom faster, I recommend that you use the urgency method. I recommend that you use the urgency method or the snowball method, because those are the two that creates hope with every small debt that you pay. To become debt free, you need a debt payoff plan that works for you, and that you need a debt payoff plan that works for you, and one that you will stick with. So as you're choosing, I know that one of the questions you might be having right now, so is that, Agatha, so which debt payoff method should I use? I've taught you the tips that I use and the 3 strategies, so that you can go evaluate yourself with the amount of debt that you have, the interest rates that they have, and then so evaluate yourself and decide out of these 3 methods and the tips she shared, which one applies to, which one can I customize to the kind of debt that I have. So because the point is not about choosing, a debt payoff strategy that sounds nice. The point here is, which debt payoff strategy can you pick and you're going to stick with until you attain debt freedom? And so maybe this is a good opportunity for me to share that I'm debt free. I attained the debt freedom on Thursday, 8 April in 2021. I still remember that day. It was 3:05 p.m. in 2021. So I actually celebrated my first anniversary of debt freedom this year, and I was so excited. So it's about choosing the strategy that you will stick with. And so I always say that coming to terms with all the debt that you're carrying can be a very daunting experience. It can be a very shameful experience, but you need to step out of your financial avoidance and rip the band-aid, because unfortunately, there's no silver bullet to debt freedom. Unfortunately, as I said, adulting equals responsibility. You have to take responsibility of the debt that you're carrying. You have to, because that is what adulting requires. Unless you have, a knight in shining armor who is going to come and pay off your debt for you, good for you, but for 99% of us, that is unlikely to happen, and therefore you're supposed to be responsible with your debt. And I always say, if you don't take good care of your credit, then your credit will not take good care of you. You know, if you don't take care of, you know, your assessors of credit, your assessors of debt, if there's a bank that has entrusted you with a loan, they're entrusting you with a loan, bearing in mind that you're an adult who is supposed to know the interest rates, that to read the interest rates that they're charging you, and therefore take charge by deciding that X, by coming up with a plan where you say that X amount of money will go towards me paying that debt. And if you're a good person, if you're responsible with your debt, it means that, for example, if you ever want to start a business, or if you ever want to take up a mortgage and approach the same financial institution, then we'll be like, yeah, this is somebody who has been a good custodian of all the debt we've given them, and therefore they will approve a bigger loan. But if you're the kind of person who's playing the avoidance mechanism and you're not taking care of your credit, then your credit will not take care of you. Because for sure, as a person who owns a small business, I need loans, you know, I need debt. At some point, in order to scale my business, I will need a debt in order to scale my business. So if I'm not a good custodian of the credit that has been given to me, then it means, oops, the credit will not take care of me. And so that's my story. And so those are the 3 debt payoff strategies that you can use to get to debt freedom. Now, I am open to all your questions. I'm open to all your questions, and I will start. When people are signing up, when you guys were signing up for this session, a few people already submitted questions. So allow me to read them, and then when I finish answering these ones, then I can answer the ones in the comment section. So somebody said, how patient do you have to be when clearing debts? The question is very patient, because especially if you remember, it takes a lot of years. For a lot of us, it takes a lot of years in order for us to dig ourselves into this debt. So for example, for me, it took, you know, we can say 4 years for me to get myself into the student loan, 4 years, and then it took me another 2 years, 2016, 2017, and 2018, another 3 years. Those are 7 years. So it took me 7 years to get myself into all that debt. And so therefore, there's no magic that was going to happen for me to be able to get myself out of debt that I got myself into within 7 years. There was no way I was going to get myself out of that debt within a year, or within a year or within a month. So there's no, just like I said, there's no magic to debt freedom. So one, you have to be very, very patient as you can. And two, you have to exercise a lot of self-care. As I said, one of the things that I did is I came together with my friends. Every week we would contribute $2, and that $2 would go towards having fun, you know, because that is self-care, because you're supposed to practice self-care as you're paying debt. Because otherwise, as I said, if you punish yourself and decide to punish yourself and decide that that the only thing I'm going to be doing is debt, I'm going to close myself in my house, I'm never going to do anything fun, you're likely not to sustain it. So please be very, very patient. For a lot of people, it takes years, 5 or even 3, 4, 5 years in order for you to get out of debt. Of course, it depends with the amount of debt you're carrying, the interest rates, the contracts that you have with the companies that you have. So practice out of patience. Somebody else submitted a question and said, I'm in quite considerable debt cycle, especially loan apps. This is my twin. How slowly can you actually pay them off, especially given their harassment and impatient tactics? I believe I've already answered this question. I was there, done that. These are the strategies that I used. And also, by the way, I have made a customized Excel sheet. I have made a custom-made Excel sheet that you're able to key in the debts that you have. This Excel sheet, you're able to key in the debts that you have, the period of time that you're expected to pay this debt, and also the interest rates that you have of this debt. And this is a customized Excel sheet that I can give you for free. I'm going to put a link in the description as soon as I'm done answering these questions. I'm going to put a link so that you're able to download it. But yeah, so this person, I'm sure I've already answered your question by sharing my story. Another person said, upon the realization of the huge mistake I did when I started using loan apps for loans, I defaulted all to ensure I can't borrow, then settle a few, and remained with a few, which I'm now working to settle. Was this a good approach? So this person used an approach where they realized that they're in the mud, and they decided that they will dig themselves deeper in the mud as a way to get themselves out of the situation. Well, I am happy that they're in the process of getting themselves out of that debt. The only reminder I would say that remember that these financial institutions keep a record of this default, which means that in future, if you ever need a bigger loan to start a business or something, they have all these records, you know. So I'm just happy that you're in the process of getting yourself out of debt, and I've shared the strategy. So what I would need you to do is download that Excel sheet and then key in all this debt, go to the terms and conditions of these mobile money loans and see how much interest rates you've accumulated and see the amount, and then decide you're going to start with the smallest one. You're going to start with the one that has the highest interest rate, or are you going to start with the one that you're receiving life-threatening calls? So at least I have shared that journey, been there, done that, and I have an Excel sheet to share with you guys. Another question, how does one manage debt collectors while paying off their debts? Use the urgency method. You know, there's a way you can negotiate. You know, if they keep, first of all, at least in Kenya, I know that they are not supposed to be, and I'm assuming this person is in Kenya because this story is very terrible in this country. So first of all, you can tell these people to stop sending you these life-threatening calls. It's actually illegal for them to be sending you those life-threatening calls. So one thing that you can do is tell them that you report them. Yeah, you can report them to the cops. They won't do much, but at least show them that you're owning the process. Number two, of course, the most valid way is get yourself out of this debt. You know, use that Excel sheet, list all these debts, pay kidogo, little by little. At least I do know that if you start paying little by little, they stop, because that is what I did. You know, I was in so much debt when I received this life-threatening call. There was no way I could pay this debt one-off within 1 month's paycheck. No, I started paying it little by little, and I know for sure if you start paying it little by little, they actually reduce the number of threatening calls that they send you. One last person shared that they're drowning in debts, loss after the other. Only God can rescue them. There's the God factor, but then there's also you. There's also you deciding that adulting equals responsibility, and Agatha is sharing an Excel sheet that you can use to get yourself out of this situation, and she has shared 3 strategies and the tips she used. So please find the courage. I know it's hard, but find the courage to get yourself out of this situation. So those are the questions that were submitted to us via email. So now, Angela, you can help me by moderating the questions in the comment section. Yeah.
We have just about 5 minutes to the end of the event, but
Okay.
I'll quickly go through some of the comments that people have shared. So one person says, my current situation is that I have succeeded in paying all the mobile debt I had, plus people's loans that was amounting to almost 100K. Now I have a SACCO loan, which I took exactly a year ago. I'm on a payroll, but I have only been able to pay like 50K out of the 450K I took. Now I feel like this will take long for me to pay, given that I want to clear the loan as fast as I can. But then again, money is so tight and the salary I get is not much. The money I get is not constant, but on average around 45K. How do I go about it? I need help. So well, if it makes sense, I explain my family setup. I live with a 7-year-old, just the 2 of us. I'm stressed out.
Okay, so I completely understand how this person is feeling. And the thing I would say is that, so the beautiful thing about the Excel sheet that and maybe I should start looking for the link to this Excel sheet. The thing is that this Excel sheet helps you play around with the numbers, you know, helps you play around with the numbers. It helps you, you're able to, when you play around with the numbers and the interest rate and the amount of money that you owe, it tells you, you can get out of this. If you pay $200, for example, towards this debt, you can get out of this debt within 9 years. But if you increase this amount of money to $250, you can get yourself out of debt within 7 years. If you increase to $300, you can get yourself out of debt within 5 years. So it helps you play around with these numbers, and therefore you're able to get yourself out of debt. So at least practically, I will share this Excel sheet and with an explanation on how it works, and you're therefore able to get yourself out of this situation. But a caution is, I will beg you to not get yourself into more debt. And I'm happy that you've already said that you got yourself out of the other debts. Don't get yourself out of other debts. And because I do understand you're tight on salary, a hack I always share, like, remember I said that one of the ways that I got myself out of debt is any extra money that I earned went into debt. So, I always say that when it comes to your budget, there's only so much you can cut out of, because you can decide that I'm not going to be going out so that I get more money towards debt payment. There's only so much you can cut out of your budget, because at the end of the day, you are a human being that needs to live. So in this case, I would say that look at the skill set that you have, look at the skill set, look at your workplace. Is it possible for you to start a side hustle? Is it possible for you to start a side gig? Is it possible for you to sell something? By the way, at the moment, because I have a lot of coaching clients, I have a coaching client who in the last week sold an iPad that she had bought for her kids a few years ago, and those kids no longer use that iPad. She had also bought a laptop for her kids, and now they use, the desktop, and they no longer use that desktop. She had so many pairs of shoes for her kids, because kids outgrow these things very fast. So she had so many things in her kids' room that were just there, and that were just there not being useful. And she sold so many of those, and she got around $500 out of these things, and all that money she put towards debt payment. So be creative. Can you get a side hustle? Is there something in your house that you can put on sale? Such things, because there's only so much that you can cut out of your budget, and therefore, which other creative ways can you get of getting extra money to go towards debt payment?
Okay. So we have quite a number of questions coming in, and I think we're gonna have to run them really quickly. What next steps when debt-free, especially after years of debt cycle?
The next step. So I would say the next step after you attain debt freedom is one thing that I did personally is to sit down and ask myself, what is my relationship with debt moving forward? Because what happens is that if you're stuck in debt, for a considerable amount of time, then you come to fear debt. People who've been stuck in debt, if you ask them, can you ever take a loan again? No, I would never take a loan again. But that is the wrong approach, because remember that debt is something that you can leverage to, for example, fund a business that you have. So evaluate, ask yourself, after you get out of debt, what is my relationship with debt going forward? So for me, my current relationship with debt going forward is that, one, I will never touch mobile money loans, because those are ridiculous and they are made to just keep you broke. And the interest rates are so high, I cannot compete with those interest rates. In fact, I keep telling people, there is no investment. There's no legit, maybe I should use that word, there's no legal or legit investment that gives you interest rates that can match the amount of interest rate you're paying towards these mobile money loans. So therefore, you should not touch those mobile money loans. That's my relationship with debt now. I can't touch those mobile money loans. If I use a credit card, which I have, I pay that amount in full. I don't do the minimum payments, because what happens if you have a credit card, and a credit card is a beautiful thing because you're essentially spending other people's money. But after I spend other people's money, I make sure at the end of the month, I pay the debt in full. And by paying that debt in full, it means that I am paying zero in interest rates. But if I only pay the minimum payment, it means that the other amount that I haven't paid will be rolled over to the new month, and that you have to pay hefty interest rates. So I use good debt. I keep good debt, and at the moment, I would pursue a debt that would help me scale my business. So it's all about evaluating moving forward after you've paid off debt, after you've attained by debt freedom. What is your relationship with debt moving forward? Because debt at the same time can be a good thing, as long as it's not those killing mobile money loans that we have, for example. Yeah.
Okay, so the last question that I'm gonna give you, someone says, Aline, you can set a side hustle to help you increase your income. We're in a gig economy. Look within you and see what you're good at, and that will you sell to others and market it. I think this person was answering one of the questions. Okay, so I think that's it. Let me see if we've missed any.
So yeah, as you're looking
right.
for, I have
one last question.
Okay.
So with the increasing interest rates on loans, the avalanche method could be beneficial in that case, as this helps keep the interest expenses from rising. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that person is right, exactly. So what you're doing with the avalanche method is that you're making sure you're not paying a lot of money. You're not paying a lot of money towards the financial institutions, and therefore being on top of the interest rate, it means that you're getting ahead, because financial institutions will always be for themselves. It's their businesses. They want to make as much money from you as possible. So therefore, by paying the interest rate, by using the avalanche method, you stay on top of your debt, and you will therefore not pay as much money to financial institutions.
Okay, awesome. So that's it. Those were the questions.
Okay, so I have shared a link in the comment section, and a link in the comment section, and in the description of that video, you will be able, in the description of that video, you'll be able to download that free Excel sheet. That free Excel sheet, you can download it at your own time, and it will be shared directly into your email. So yeah. Somebody's asking, how may we join the Wealth Tribe? By join the YouTube channel. So I've shared a link to the YouTube. By subscribing to the YouTube channel, then you have access to all these things. Yes, it's the YouTube link. So thank you, Angela. We are done, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, so thank you for joining. Thank you so much for keeping me company. Thank you for engaging me. Thank you for asking all those questions. You can click the link I've shared in the description, in the chat box. In the description box, you'll be able to download that Excel sheet, that customized ball Excel sheet. And then after that, you will be good to go. You'll be good to go. And because you'll be able to receive it in your email, I'll also be able to share more resources and how you can get yourself out of debt. So thank you. Bye. Thank you for keeping us company. And that's all from us. Thank you, Angela, for helping me.
You and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.